we'll start with attendance. I'll go this way since Andrew's not here. I'm Jen Lima, school committee member.
Kenny Duba, superintendent.
Rob Mezzanotte, assistant superintendent.
Laura Pickering from Hennius Carroll Lombardo.
Thank you. Stand, do we have any citizens' comments? No? Okay. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 15th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, awesome. So, Rob, you're up.
All right, so the first document is the attendance policy. If you just give me just a minute, let me
Yep.
pull it up. All right, so we reviewed this policy with the help from the admin council team, team of building and district administrators. So basically what we did is we kind of started with going through the purpose and philosophy around attendance. I don't know how much detail you want me to get into in terms of reading from it, but I'll just give it an overview. So purpose and philosophy around attendance. We wanted to define some of the terms that are going to come through in the policy. So we talked about excused absences, unexcused absences, tardy, excused tardy, unexcused tardy, excused early dismissal, unexcused early dismissal. And just trying to come up with a common understanding of these terms so everyone can understand them. Also truancy, what it means to be chronically absent, and then truancy officer. So we wanted to make sure that there was a common understanding of some of the terminology used because, and this is for our district's interpretation of attendance. Obviously the Department of Ed has their own, they have their own process for identifying, chronic absenteeism, if you will, which doesn't take into account excused versus unexcused, but we obviously feel that we need to make sure we denote absences that are for a specific excused reason versus others. So that's a local practice that we want to make sure we follow. And then what we also wanted to do is look at sort of being clear about responsibilities on both sides. So what is the school's responsibility when it comes to attendance, and then what are the student family responsibilities when it comes to attendance? And so we delineated some of those having to do with the school district side of reporting procedures, of tracking, and if necessary investigating attendance related issues, communication with families, reporting information to state authorities, and having a system of criteria, consequences, referral for investigating and addressing excessive absences. One of the things I just glossed over too, which I think is worth noting, is the fact that we as a group talked about making sure we included language around students who have circumstances that will lead to excused absences for extended periods of time, being understanding of that, being sympathetic to that obviously, and making sure that we are providing for students in whatever way they need to be based on their own individual needs and circumstances, which I think is a good thing to add as well. As far as parent, guardian, and student responsibilities, we talked about making sure obviously they abide by the law, mandate school governance. That is obviously coming down from state law of student attendance at school. Stressing the importance of being on time and in school with their child. Provide school with accurate and current daytime contact where they can be reached. Call the school on the day of the absence to inform the school. Make every effort to schedule personal appointments for their child outside of school hours. Plan family vacations when school is not in session. Arrange for makeup work in a timely manner, and in cases of long-term illnesses, make sure to notify the school nurse and principal as soon as possible so that provisions may be made for appropriate instruction. Okay, so from there we talk about absence, tardy, and early dismissal procedure. We kind of went through again sort of each aspect here about notification, responsibilities, making sure that absences are communicated to the school if the child is going to be absent from school, making sure there's a responsibility on the part of the school that an automated call, text, and email will be sent to families of students who are absent, so they are aware of that. So making sure that happens. With tardies, again, just making sure tardy students report to the designated location, and that they're reported as unexcused until notification of an approved reason for the excused absence is provided to the office within the school. So obviously if a student is able to, it must attend a doctor's appointment or some other, excused reason for an absence, that there's evidence of that presented to the school. Early dismissal works similar to tardies in terms of it just being later in the day. Okay, that early dismissal for an excused reason is documented and coded as such. The interventions piece, this is where we talked about how schools will function in a way to support students who may be presenting with trends of concerning attendance. So it says schools shall establish teams to study attendance trends, identify chronically absent students. These teams will be responsible for analyzing school level data and for taking appropriate action to identify and intervene with students who are trending towards chronic absenteeism. And so we talked about, at a minimum, following 5 unexcused absences and or 10 or more unexcused tardies or dismissals, the school will attempt to contact the parent or guardian by telephone, email, and or regular mail to notify them of the attendance concerns and provide a link to the attendance policy for their review. Just want to note that these practices are currently in place at schools, and in most cases, actually, the notification is occurring prior to the 5 unexcused days. But we wanted to just do that as a minimum.
Okay.
Just for the note that technically, by the state of Rhode Island's definition, 18 days of absence per year are considered chronically absent. So it's 10% of the total days of the school year. And so that would be for that. The next step would be, the next intervention would take place following 10 unexcused absences or 15 or more unexcused tardies or dismissals. The school would attempt to contact the parent guardian by phone, email, or regular mail to schedule a meeting to discuss the trends and attempt to establish plans. So if you look at the second intervention, is where, beyond just the regular contact, we're going to set a meeting and have a conversation around the topic of attendance. And then the final intervention would be the referral to the truancy officer. Okay, first, oops, okay, thanks. So that's kind of where we are there. Any questions up to this point? I feel like I'm going kind of fast.
No.
No? Okay.
I'm gonna hold my questions to you.
All right, and from there, we would look at, so the truancy officer referral would take place at that point when the student is on the cusp of chronic absenteeism. Also, I want to note the 7th point, which is middle school and high school shall establish procedures aimed at deterring students from accumulating excessive unexcused absences, tardies, dismissals. On a quarterly basis, schools will examine attendance data and will establish social suspension consequences for students accumulating excessive unexcused absence, tardies, dismissals. Schools will provide a clear definition for social suspension and will also establish criteria for how students will be placed on social suspension and for how students will be removed from social suspension after meeting established goals over a defined timeline.
Okay, I lied. I'm going to interrupt. So we're suspending students socially if they're chronically absent?
We are providing as an option, yes, if students are not meeting expectations around attendance.
So if they don't come to school, they can't go to a dance. Is that what that means?
It could mean that.
Yeah, just
Could mean that.
yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So that I get, like if you're not there
Yeah.
that day, you can't
Yeah.
go, but that's not what that sounds like to me.
No, that's not exactly what that is.
Yeah,
it's
not a
That
one-to-one.
is that if a student is displaying trends of chronic absenteeism, that could be used as a consequence for students who are displaying those trends in cases where other matters don't work. So meetings, calls, notification,
Yeah.
going home, if that isn't seen as being effective or is not changing some of the trends that they're seeing around students attending school, that social suspension could be an option for those students.
Doesn't that go against the whole philosophy of encouraging kids to come to school and wanting them to be in a place where they're happy and enjoying themselves?
So, can I
Yes,
ask a
and?
question?
Yeah,
Can I
you
ask a
can.
question? But is the social suspension, right, cause we just talked about how may not be able to go to a dance, right, so
Yeah.
they're losing that. Are we saying we're going to suspend them from school, attending school
No.
for a day?
No.
Or we're suspending them from an event?
It would be an extra event, that would be something,
So they're
not,
losing
not during the school day.
So they're losing the privilege, so they're not coming to school, we've tried interventions.
Yeah.
To get them to come here, they're continuing not to come, so now that you're not coming to school for your academic piece, you're not able to attend the dance or attend this other event because of that.
I understand if you're not there that day, but to like, can you, I guess like, what is, like, how is social suspension defined? Is that a like blanket period of time? Is that, you know?
I think I wouldn't say, I wouldn't support something that's a blanket period of time, I think it needs to be very specific to the situation that's happening right then, so if you have a student that's not coming in and has chronic absences and we're trying to get them in, I would say it's that next event, right? You cannot attend that
Yeah,
next
so
school
the
event.
idea would
It's
be
not
that-
We need to look at that language
open-ended
then.
of like,
Yeah, I feel like this is
Forever,
vague,
or-
and I'd like that, just because, like, my concern is, like, I understand if you're absent that day, you cannot go to the event, like, that makes sense to me, but if we have a child who's chronically absent and we're trying to encourage them to get reacclimated into the school community, I would think, like,
Telling them they can't go to track might not be the vibe.
right, like, that's my concern.
100% agree, 100% agree, and I agree with you that there's ways to do this that are right and there are ways to do this that are not right. I do think that there is some value to encouraging students to be present at school that is tied to things that they value that are extracurricular events such as like dances and proms and things of that nature. I think there is good
It can be a motivator.
factors
I
that
agree
can
with
that
you,
can play into that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It has to be done properly.
Yeah,
Has to be done according to where there's responsibilities on both sides for communication on the school side and obviously on the student side and the family side of being in school
yeah,
on a regular basis. So I agree with you. I don't think this should be something that is necessarily you know like an immediate right consequence, if you will. I view it as more of a motivator, that it can be something that can be twisted in a positive way so that students understand that the privileges that they might want to seek also do come with them responsibilities of attending school regularly.
yep, no,
Where did this language come from? Did we just? wasn't
I
the
looked
old
at some
one,
other
right?
districts
Yeah, okay.
who
No, that's fine.
yeah.
That makes sense. I just wasn't sure if it was in our existing one or if it was something that is
It
new
wasn't
that we
in-
got
in
this
our
year.
existing one.
Yeah.
existing one, yeah.
I think for me, like, I get what you're saying, Rob.
Mhm.
I think it sounds to me very punitive. Like, I don't like on a quarterly basis, we'll examine attendance data and we'll establish social suspension consequences. Like, to me, that sounds like we're saying, even though I hear you and what you're saying, like, I think it just is a language thing. Like, maybe just cleaning that language up so it doesn't
Sure.
sound like, hey, quarterly, we're gonna look and see how many kids are absent.
Yeah.
And then based on that, like, we're gonna deem who gets social suspension. Like, that's how it's reading to me. But I hear what you're saying. Like, that could be used in the right situation as like a, hey, you haven't been coming to school, like we need you to come to school. Until you come to school, like you're not gonna be able to go to prom. Like, you know, like we need to see an uptick in your attendance. Like, I get that, which
Yeah.
is very different than how it's written. So we can just look at it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, and I think that what we want to do is we want to make sure that we establish language that is effective in not being too narrow, but also not being too vague. I agree with that. Again, my ideal picture of this coming to fruition is where conversations are taking place.
Yeah.
Like honest and you know, respectful conversations are taking place of, you know, like we talked about, like privileges that we want to offer, like opportunities that we want to offer students that happen outside of the school day are things that have to, you know, have to be met with some responsibility.
Yep.
You know, and so I agree with you. We can phrase it up that way, where we can make it a little more
Yeah, we'll just look at it.
positively phrased, I guess.
Yeah, because when I read this as like, okay, at the end of quarter one, you are going to get put on social suspension because you didn't come to school. Like, that's the way this reads. Versus, we've tried A, B, C, D, E, and now we're
Yep.
trying this. Like,
Yeah.
so, like in my mind, it's kind of may be a consequence, not will establish, right?
I understand.
mean,
Yep.
that type of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we as a group comfortable with moving forward with that language here?
Not this language.
Not
that's
this
in
language here. I'm talking about
The
like what
concept
we're
of social
conceptually
suspension.
with this. Yeah. Like, because if we wanna have that discussion, I'm happy to have that discussion.
No, I hear what you're saying.
I think we just need to reword, I think if we just
Yeah.
reword it so it doesn't come across as, 'cause I'm hearing what you both are saying, like the way it's written right now, it comes across as though we're looking for, right, students that are not attending school, that have patterns, and now we're gonna take something away from them, versus what we're saying
option.
is,
Yeah.
this is kind of like at the end of the line, after all these interventions were put in place, we're now at the point where that's not working, they're still not coming in, so now kind of gotta dangle some type of a carrot in
Yeah,
front of them.
yeah.
If you want to attend, you know, the next dance or the junior prom or whatever it may be, you need to be in school,
Mhm.
and you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to go there.
Yeah.
And if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then
It's not
now you're
happening,
not
yeah,
going.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think some language about like at, you know, like as a, like, what Ken said, but like, yeah, let's rework it and then we can look and see if we wanna
Okay, I'll
change
work on it.
anything. But I'm not against, I trust that the building administrators would use it in a way that would make sense for them and what would be best for the student. I just think the language,
Yeah, I think phrasing it up in a way where it is again, presented as a motivator and as a I don't know how I'm gonna try to,
Like a possibility, not a guarantee.
Yeah,
That's the way it kind
yeah,
of reads right now,
yeah.
I did put a note into Rob about the criteria will be clearly outlined in the student handbook. I think one of the things that we've noticed with the handbooks is that there's inconsistencies, so like maybe just outlining, like I don't even understand what that criteria would be in this sentence, and so if we could just maybe
Yeah. I mean,
add
in the sentence before it, I wrote procedures at all middle
Yeah.
school and high school will be the same.
yeah.
So I would want, yeah, we'd have
You
to
know,
have
we
that.
could just look at if we even
Yeah.
want that sentence in there, if we wanna
Okay.
take it out.
Okay,
Like I think anything to do to help have consistency among the schools would be helpful.
yeah,
Like we want them to have autonomy, but also I don't
Mhm.
want different criteria at DMS than WMS on that.
100%. I would
So we
expect,
can
I would
look at that.
expect
Yeah.
consistent criteria.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Can I just jump back up
Yeah.
to number 3 and 4?
Mhm.
And I'm Laura.
Hi Laura, sorry.
That's
Thank you.
okay. The statute 1619-1 requires before a referral to truancy court that you consult with the parents and guardians, which is in here, but it also requires that you consult with, if the student has an IEP 504, and it kind of says that, like, attempt to establish plans and or address the barriers to the student's attendance going forward. But what we're finding, like, when we're in family court before the judge,
Mhm.
they want to know, has the school, like, if the student has an IEP 504, even if they don't have one, they want to know that you've,
Exhausted.
gone through that practice.
yeah,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that this
Yeah, we can make
comes
that more
up
clear.
in court a lot. So just for people that are looking at the policy, maybe to make it clear that that's a requirement for all the staff that are
Yep.
involved, that you have to
Go through
do that,
child
because
Yep.
once you get up to court,
They're gonna send you back.
they send you.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
What part was that in?
Under interventions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and a lot of times that's happening already. It's just
And we want
To
to be
call
clear.
it out,
just
yeah.
to make it really
Yeah.
clear. Yeah.
mhm.
So where would it go?
I think
Otherwise?
right before, so like at 3, so
Okay.
before the referral is made to the truancy officer in 4, that the school, I can add the language here from the statute if you want.
That would be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you
Yeah.
if you just wanna add like a comment and then if you just wanna throw it in, or if it's easy
Would-
enough to type right in.
Laura, would it make more sense to, cause item 5 mentions the IEP 504 piece, would it make more sense to have it there, or would it make more sense to put
I
it
think you
before?
wanna make sure that before the referral is even made, cause I saw that too and I was like, okay, but before the referral's even made to the truancy officer,
Mhm.
that there's been some kind of a meeting convened,
Mhm.
if the student has one, or does the student need one, because why aren't they coming
Right.
to
Mhm.
school? Is there, because like anxiety is probably one of the biggest issues that comes up in court as to why the student isn't coming to school, and then the judge is like, well, what have you been doing? And we know that the schools are doing a lot, it's just
Right.
that we,
Is it part
To-
of an official IEP or
yeah,
a
to be able
504
to
plan?
say-
Yeah.
they've determined that this student's not eligible, or they are eligible and we've put one in place and that's not working, and that's why we're here.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Laura, would you, I mean, I can certainly go in and sort of dig some of that language out.
Yeah, should I email it?
Do you mind? Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that like tomorrow.
I'm just gonna
or
put
something.
add Laura language.
Right.
Did you reference the statute there too?
I think it's listed in the,
Is it up at the top?
up above.
Right, perfect.
Yeah, I'll send you some like proposed language and then you guys can play around with it.
Thank you. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up in terms of anything new. We do have a notation here about family travel and vacation. Students' absence from class for the purpose of family travel or vacation is a loss of valuable class time and is strongly discouraged. These absences will be considered unexcused. Makeup work will be provided upon their return to school. Does that sound okay to people, or?
Do we talk about makeup work anywhere else in the policy? I had a note that what was it?
We didn't wanna do that, right, cause we were trying to different,
Yeah.
like there's that other policy that covers.
It is mentioned at other places
Is it?
here, yeah.
It had been in the other policy, in the old policy, it said students shall only be permitted to make up work and assessments missed during excused absences.
Mm-hmm. Which we no longer,
And if that's no longer the case, then it shouldn't be
mm-hmm.
in,
Mm-hmm.
so that's.
Well, it says makeup work will be provided upon their return.
From vacation.
Yeah.
To me, that's not the same thing as like sick,
Mm-hmm.
because that specifically says it under family travel and
Yep.
vacation.
No, yeah, so you're saying it shouldn't be provided?
No,
Oh.
I'm asking, like, if somebody's out sick for 5 days, like, an arbitrary number, 3 days, 4 days, whatever, like, I guess my question was the only where that makeup work is addressed is under family travel and vacation, so should it need to be addressed anywhere else?
It's mentioned under parent guardian / student responsibilities. It says arrange for makeup work in a timely manner.
It's in the bulleted list on page
Oh, under C,
4.
okay.
I hear what you're saying though, like if we're not saying it for when they're early dismissed, or then we're not saying it for the other things, like do we need to say it there, or is it just under that list?
Looking back at previous policies, did we have another policy that we referenced that in, or,
So it's in the
Grading
policy?
kind of, I think.
Mhm.
okay, that's what's,
Which is in gonna be in revision, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gone back and forth on that versus what's in the policy and trying to align it with like what the actual procedures of the building administration is. I know like the high school administration gave us good feedback on the quick updates we did in that grading policy, because we updated some of that language in the interim regarding that.
I think like the way I look at this, right, if you read where you set up here, like if you're late or absent or whatever, you've gotta arrange for the work in a timely manner, but then if you come down here, the way it reads is that makeup work will be provided.
True.
Like, so I don't know, maybe we change it
Use the
to
same language.
request.
Use the same language, yeah.
I would use the same language.
Okay. So something like, do we wanna change this family and travel vacation section to read something along the lines of makeup work will be available upon request?
Yeah, just something that makes it clear that the onus is on the
Should be.
family
Right.
to request it, that it isn't gonna be automatically provided without asking.
How I assume it would work is, say you have a family wedding and like you gotta go to said family wedding, and so you take your kids out on a Friday and you go to said family wedding wherever it is. When your student comes back, and I remember in the old one, and I don't know if we purposely took it out or accidentally took it out, it said something about like that teachers will not provide packets of work like before the trip, because I could imagine that was like a request that they would get, and that's not always reasonable, like for them to get that. So what I would imagine is the kid comes back to school and the teacher would say, hey, here's the stuff that you missed, right? Like, so it's not like I as a parent need to ask for that.
Like in older grades though,
Yeah.
like you come back in and the work is not, like you have to, I guess where I'm,
Yeah.
like the teacher I don't think is responsible for saying Sally was out on Friday because they went to a wedding, so
Yeah.
I need to put the packet together, and then Johnny was out for a month because they went to Hawaii, right? Like it's on the family to
Correct.
get that.
Yeah, it is the
Correct.
responsibility of the parent or guardian to arrange for makeup work in a timely manner. I would just do the same language then
Okay.
as what was up top.
Where'd you just pull it
It's
from?
in the bullet, I can just pull it down now.
Thank you.
It's on item 7 under your, like, on one of the lists.
And even for this, if we wanted to say something like work will not be made available ahead of time, you can request it when you get back, right? Cause that's what you're trying to get at, right? Like
Yep.
if you're leaving for a week in November,
Yeah, it's not the teacher's responsibility
Right.
to get all that ready for
Right.
them. It was in the old one, I don't know. I read it somewhere, I definitely did not make that up out of the blue.
no, I remember that too. My other question was, were we talking here about the schools establishing teams to study attendance trends and identify chronically absent students? Like we've been getting a report at the school committee level, but we have to request it. Is it possible to put something in here about, you know, about those presentations and the time
Yeah,
that
like,
they're gonna be made available so that the school committee isn't having to request it automatically?
not automatically, but requested. Have it be more of a, like bi-yearly thing versus then on request, is what you're trying to say?
Correct,
Do something in January and June.
yeah, I mean,
right?
just
That way
something.
it's half year, that, and provide a report regarding chronic absenteeism. Cause last year we did at the end of the school year.
Yeah.
Right, if we do something in January and June, it's halfway points.
Yeah.
Which gives us time to put that together.
Would that be under interventions, or do you think that
No,
would be?
that would have to be in like a report to school committee.
Yeah, it'd be
Like,
a-
next-
it'd be
next,
like a-
separate section towards the end of reporting
Yeah.
measures.
So maybe if we did that after interventions, like before family and child?
I would
do it at the
just
very
the very
end.
end.
Very end?
Yeah, like it's like
after appeals
reporting and
process.
transparency or reporting and whatever, cause that gave us a good sense of, like when the truancy officer came in and like gave us some of those themes and some of the things that she was seeing, like that was very, I think, helpful for us in understanding the problem and supports that might be needed, like at the administrative level. So I think having that was definitely.
So we'll add some language, something, reporting to school committee, is that okay as a
Mhm.
title? Okay, so something along the lines of, on a biannual basis?
It maybe say January and June.
Yeah, I would just put it in, in January or June of each school year,
Yeah.
a report will be provided to
January and June.
June of each school year, a report will be provided to the school committee.
I'm trying to think if that's, like, I know why you're saying January and June, I was trying to think of like functionally, is that the best dates? Cause if you would, like for making impact, right, like January, you could still get it in the budget, so I guess that, like, if we realized, oh gee, we really need additional assistance in this area, like, we could still work that in. June, like, it's kind of just a, hey, this is how we did,
Right.
and then maybe
And
some
follow
tweaks or
up.
plans for September, yeah,
Mhm.
I guess. Can't think of a better,
So a report will be provided to the school
To
committee
like-
detailing the absentee,
Absentee trends, I guess, yeah.
Chronically absent trends.
chronic absenteeism, chronic absenteeism
And available resources for
Trends.
improving attendance.
and available resources for improving student attendance.
And I'm sorry, Rob, I know you said, I've got like a wicked headache, I'm having a hard time focusing. I know
That's
you,
okay.
you said this verbally, but I don't see it in here about like the fact that RIDE looks at excused and unexcused as one and the same. I think
Mhm.
we had talked last time about noting that somewhere, but I don't know
Let
if
me
we decided
check.
we didn't, or if,
Recheck if I had, I may have,
I saw that in here.
I thought I may have had that somewhere. Do we think that needs to be?
I don't know, I had a note that we had talked about it, I don't know whether that's something that,
I think it should be in here because some people do look at our reports and our data that RIDE puts on the dashboards and things, like that's all public information, and so if they're seeing a difference, like a disparity between what we're getting as reports for the school committee and what RIDE's putting out, like that would help explain that difference. Trying to think.
Wait a sec. Okay, I do have that here. Under chronically absent students, which is a term defined under definition, it says students who are absent for 10% or more of total school days, 18 or more total for the school year, are considered chronically absent. Chronic absenteeism does not take into account excused or unexcused absences. Any absence for any reason counts towards students' chronic absenteeism status. So should I just make a note that this is a Department of Education term?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can put there, so chronic absenteeism
So chronic absenteeism.
as defined by Rhode Island Department of Education?
yeah,
Because their definition on their website is chronic absenteeism is a measure of how many students miss a defined number of school days for any reason. Rhode Island defines chronic absenteeism as the percentage of students who miss 10% or more school days during the year, parentheses, or 2 days per month.
the other note that I had was, so we're having excused absences as a religious holiday, do we wanna change that to observation, because,
Religious observation rather than holiday?
like a strict reading of this would say that it's just like holidays noted, but we've had the conversation about, providing the
Mhm.
excuse for other observations.
Can
So
we
religious-
write holiday or observation?
Yeah. Or slash observation?
Yeah.
Do you know the difference? I just Googled it.
I do not know what the difference.
It's interesting.
Okay, then you can tell me.
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura wants to know. So a religious holiday is a sacred day that is observed by a group of people. A religious observance is a day or event that is celebrated to remember, raise awareness, or celebrate something, but it's not usually a day off of work.
Interesting.
Let's see. They're different.
And then the only other note that I had that I don't see that we talked about here was, we talked about, and I feel like we have to put it in the policy somewhere, just and not leave it to the individual. We talked about, like, if normally when you are absent, you cannot participate in athletics, or probably even a dance, but like if you miss due to a religious observation, like that shouldn't be,
Right.
but that's not called out here.
So we could put something in here that relates to, I'm not sure if this belongs at the policy level or not, we can discuss that, but if we wanted to, so how I read that and understand it would be that if you have an excused absence, right, you may participate in extracurricular events if your absence is excused.
And that if it's for a religious observation, it would be excused, so you could
Correct.
still
Mhm.
participate.
So it would
But
just be for unexcused absences that would come into effect.
Correct. So, but now here's the thing, right? Like, just play it out in real
Well,
time, right?
that might
Like,
be a problem too. Yeah, that might be a problem too now. but,
yeah. So I come in and I come in late because I had something to take care of in the morning. It's excused, but
Mhm.
how do you determine that at the time? Because isn't there something that says the excused note can follow after? I'm just wondering how to.
Right, and I'm also seeing that suspension days are included under excused, and suspension days would not allow you to permit.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so,
So you could, in that case, what would we get a letter from the parent or guardian? Is that how it would work?
for what?
To get excused for a religious or observation day? Observation day. How would that roll? So like,
So there's language in the athletic handbook regarding this.
What
Is it
did
good?
say?
can we use it?
Well, it talks about having a waiver. It says waivers may be granted for emergency bereavement, religious, family, or other reasons. A student, I'm gonna get started, but in this this is in regards to a student who is out of school on the day of the event. So there is language in it for a student to continue participating in this case,
I don't
it's
think, I think,
specific
yeah,
athletics,
I think we
but
wanna make it bigger than sports, like, we want it to,
I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
we do have.
How do they get the waiver though?
I was gonna say, that puts the burden on the student.
The waiver comes from the
So like, the
athletic
Tober would, right,
director
Tober
or
would, right?
principal saying you can't, and it says waiver, I'm not sure if we're just calling
No, that might be a,
waiver
That sounds
versus
like
an
a
Rhode
actual.
Island, it sounds like a Rhode Island
Interscholastic
interscholastic,
term.
yeah. Thank you, I know, I was close. You know what I mean,
Yeah,
like
and
that,
it's-
that sounds like.
It's under the league rules. for
Yeah, it's under the
just
league
last
rules, so
year.
like, the athletic director could give a waiver to a student that wasn't in that day, cause they had to attend a wake, but then they can play in the game that night.
Right,
Like,
but
that's what it sounds
interscholastically
like.
doesn't govern student eligibility for like,
No, but like, it sounds like, most things that are written like that are
come
for
from
a
that,
reason.
okay, yeah,
And so I bet
Yep.
somebody was out of school one day,
right,
and then they played in a game that night, and the other team was, like it probably trickled like that, and that's why that language is probably in there.
Mhm.
But I think just having something general in that would be good in this policy, that aligns with that maybe. Because it's not just sports, like it's participating in the theater,
Mhm.
yeah.
whatever, or the music thing, like. I think we just
So-
don't want students to feel like they have to, if they want to participate in the big thing, or the thing, that they have to be in school, even if their religion dictates that they shouldn't be there, for whatever reason.
So, I mean,
This is the language it's from, your favorite source from.
okay.
I'll tell you what AI has to say.
Well, reading the excused absence description, anything coded under an excused absence, with the exception of suspension, would be something that would not, would be, would not,
Would make it work. It would
Thank
work
you.
with that, yeah.
yeah.
Even illness or injury?
Again, well, if you have a documented illness or injury, yeah, I mean, if you had a documented
You were
illness
migraine
where
in the
it said, so-and-so was not in school today because of X, but is cleared to participate, we'd accept that.
Okay.
As long as the documentation noted
Yeah.
that.
So two ways you could do it. One is you could write a whole different section for it, or you could move the suspension days out of the excused absence piece and make a different category, or make a subnote, like saying like suspended days like will be accounted as excused but XYZ. There's basically two different, like you could go at it either way.
Yeah. I
And
don't
basically,
know.
you just want someone to say that a statement in here that if a student has an excused absence on the day of a school event, they can still participate in the school event because they have an excused absence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
much what we're saying.
Yeah.
So other than a suspension,
Yep.
Yeah.
so above excused absences, other than a suspension,
Mhm.
I would pull
if a
the,
student has one of the above excused absences, they still will be allowed to participate in a school event on that day, is what we're saying.
I know I'm like getting into the weeds here, but I just wanna make sure, like, nowhere illness as documented, but, okay, so only the illness or injury has to be documented in writing by a medical professional, correct?
But I guess, I was gonna put something out there, if a student is out of school because they're sick, that's an excused absence, why are they coming in later for a school event?
Oh, that's why I,
So-
yeah,
Right?
I'm
Just wanna be careful what we're
how I'm
saying,
interpreting is
because
this.
like,
Student has an appointment during the day.
yep,
Okay, the appointment, a medical appointment is such that the student can't attend school that day. But the student is able to attend an event at night, and that is documented by the person who had the appointment, right?
Right.
It's a rare circumstance, it's not something that would be normal, like obviously if a student's sick during the day, then they're not gonna be attending an
Right.
event at night.
Depends on the illness.
Maybe, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, it
There
does.
are things like that could be, you have a headache, you have cramps, you take a thing and you're fine later in the day, like that is technically possible.
It is, so.
But you're not like gonna get other people sick, like there are ailments that you could be ill at, that like you would not infect others.
Correct, so what I would expect is that, and how I would handle it, I guess, as a building level person, would be that there would be some type of documentation that was presented that indicated that
Yep.
this child has a unique circumstance that would not allow
There's a
them to
real
go-
reason not to
yeah.
be at school,
Exactly.
Yeah, like I'm
Right.
thinking like, you know, funerals is one, right, you have to go to funeral
Yeah.
in the morning, you come in after the half point of the day, technically you're absent, but you can't go to practice, you can't go to extracurricular if you're absent, but you were at a funeral, like, you
Right.
should be able to do that, like, or
Correct.
your religious observations required you to be out of school, but you're free in the evening, like, you should be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And I think you should be able to do it as a practice, not as a,
but
like,
exception.
as an exception, right?
Correct.
And putting that burden on each individual, like,
Yeah,
area
I
to
think
yes or no.
I agree 100%. The illness piece, I think, would be a little bit
I
different.
agree.
Because we would have to make sure that illness was something that was cleared for that participation.
So we just need to figure out how to handle the suspension days from the excused absence section. You could just like have it, kind of what Ken was saying, and then literally start a new sentence and say suspension days will be also marked as an excused absence, but like students are not eligible to participate in after
Extracurriculars, well,
school activities or
Yeah.
something.
Will, suspensions will also
Or as
be
many
marked
days as
as an
that
excused
legally.
absence.
Is that bad legally?
No, but this?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
part.
What was the second part of the sentence, Erin?
I
Will be
read
marked
suspension
as-
days will be marked as excused absence, but students will not be eligible to participate in
Be eligible.
school-sponsored activities.
during the period of the suspension, yeah.
Participate. In school-sponsored
I was just using the language from up top, but you could be different, because it's school-sponsored activity.
during the period of suspension.
And then that way the other piece is kind of covered, and then you still have that there.
Mhm.
How's that?
Excused absences.
Okay.
How does that first sentence read though? Excused absences include a student's participation in okay, I see it. Okay, cool.
Okay,
We're just ending with the fact that we can't come to a conclusion on like the not requiring people to go to the doctors, right?
which that for?
Unexcused absences. And we had that concern about like you give your kid a COVID test at home, they are COVID positive, like their symptoms are fine, we know they can't go to school, but I don't
Mhm.
wanna go and pay a copay at the doctor's to get a doctor's note, therefore it's marked as an unexcused absence. Like we were kinda trying to figure out how to rectify that, and I know there was like a lot of concern about it and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I heard you on the part where you were talking about like, you know, the way that you would handle it as a building administrator, like it would more be about trends and different things, and like I just think that part of the rule, like for the rule followers, like they're gonna
Mhm.
make an appointment, they're gonna go to the pediatrician even though like they might not need to, just because they don't want an unexcused absence on their kid's
Mhm.
transcript, for lack of a better word. But like for my personal opinion, like when it really comes down to it, like if a student has a bunch of absences, no matter if they're excused or unexcused, if you all as building administrators have concerns, like you're gonna address that regardless. And so I feel like that part of the rule just puts it on the like rule follower parents that don't want their actions to negatively impact their students' academic record. And so that's the part that I still feel like we didn't come to like a progress on. Like I get it, but
Yeah.
like I also don't like.
There's a, it's tough either
Yeah.
side. It is, because I agree with you
Yeah.
that there's ways, there's a message that could be sent and received in the way you're describing for sure.
It's also a privilege thing. Like, if you have enough money to take your kid to the doctors and pay those co-pays or whatever, versus not, like, the kid who has the funds to do that gets
Right.
excused absences, and the kids that don't. Plus, we know the pediatricians have, like, unbelievable caseloads right now. You know, like, I just,
And agree. The
Yeah.
flip side to that is that if you open up excused absences to cover anything, anytime a family, calls a school
Yeah.
or lets the school know, anytime you let us know that your child's gonna be absent,
Yep.
is an excused absence. It does, I think, make it more difficult on the school side to intervene, because if we're excusing the absences, the message becomes, when we're intervening and when we're sending phone calls home, or we're sending letters home notifying them of absenteeism trends, but all the absences are excused. My concern is that it's almost like a mixed message that we might be sending to people.
Ride doesn't care. So, like, it's not a mixed message, because, like, honestly, Ride thinks they're all unexcused.
Well, that would be a reason to make them all unexcused versus all excused.
Mhm.
So you don't wanna do that, I don't think.
Why?
If they're all unexcused, that means we're putting unexcused for doctor's notes?
But who cares? Like, what if it's just an absence?
Well, that would flip the whole thing around,
I know.
because now we're saying that you're unexcused no matter what
Yeah.
reason you're missing school. I don't think you want that.
No,
it's
I'm
based on
saying
conversations
you're
we've
absent.
had.
You're marked absent.
Yeah.
So I take William to the doctors, I get a note, he's marked absent. I take Caroline to the doctors, I don't get a note, she's marked absent. They're
So-
both absent. Yeah.
Understood, but I'm saying on an operations side of things,
Yeah.
at the building level, if you don't have those codes that you can observe, it becomes very, very difficult to take intervention steps, because you're not seeing any distinction between why a student might be absent or not.
Yeah.
So we would never want to, for example, provide outreach to families, do some sort of intervention for a student who has like a legitimate medical
Yeah.
reason to be absent a lot. That's where the excused and unexcused comes into play.
I totally get that. The part that is not equal, though, is that the parent that has the means, the resources, and the time to take their kid, you're never gonna call. And the parent that doesn't, you are gonna flag. So there's like but the situation could be the same. Like, their kid could be sick regardless. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I hear you,
But
but
we're only going to call if we see
a trend.
a trend
Yeah.
of unexcused absences,
Yes,
right?
but I'm saying the kids with privilege won't have that trend, and the families that can't take
That's
their
not
kids to the
necessarily
doctor.
I
true.
wouldn't say that's
There
true,
might be
because-
kids who have that trend.
I mean, I'll be honest,
Yeah.
I don't bring my child to the doctor every time they're out
Yeah.
sick. They're out, they have a headache, whatever, they're out sick.
Yeah.
I don't go and bring them.
So they're marked
They
unexcused.
get marked unexcused, and
Yeah.
it's unexcused, and
Yeah, that's what, like,
I'm not running to the doctor every time
Right.
one of my kids is sick, unless they're really, really sick.
so I guess it's just like, the question is like, what is the value of an excused absence versus an unexcused absence? And,
Because
like,
when we have
that's-
the excused absences, then we're able to look at those trends and start defining where those interventions need to take place. If we know that we have kids with excused absences and there's, whatever those reasons may be, or we have kids with medical plans and we know they have health reasons, they're out for so long, the way that we're going to be working with that family and interventions is different than someone that's just not coming to school.
And keep in mind, another thing is that we don't wanna be so narrow in thinking of like the same situation for every kid. There are students who have, chronic medical conditions where they're not running to the doctors every single time they're out sick, but they have some type of medical information on file or note on file with us so that we know that this
Yeah.
is a condition the student has, and that we can look through the lens of excused, unexcused absences with that in mind. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So it's not, we shouldn't presume it's always you have to run to the doctors every single time. There might be more, every case and oftentimes is somewhat unique.
Yeah,
Didn't the Department of Health issue, I'm trying to find an advisory on this, like last year or the year before, for schools, and basically said, don't ask for a doctor's note?
you're asking it like a question, but I think it's a statement,
is a
but also you
statement.
don't know where it is.
Correct, they
Got it.
did, because I remember, because it came up right after one of the, Democracy Night, and somebody had done their project on this very subject, and like lo and behold, the advisory had just come out.
And Rob, I hear you,
I
like, I'm
don't
not
know.
trying to overcomplicate it, but I do think that, like, our policy is, like, people, like, they see it, they don't want their kid to be unexcused, like, and it impacts how they may or may not behave. Like, Ken doesn't care if their kid for a headache gets marked as unexcused absence, but other people might. Or, like I said, you get 6 unexcused absences because you didn't take your kid to the doctor. Like, I don't know, it just is. You thought it came from who?
It was the Department of Health. I think our nurses actually sent it out.
I'm gonna say, we can check with Colleen, see if
Yeah.
she has something documented from last year regarding that.
Yeah, I think it was actually the year before, it wasn't last year.
I remember
right
that
now,
as
do
part of
we-
like when it was during COVID. I
No,
remember
this was
that.
post-COVID.
Okay.
This
Alright,
was
we'll see if we
definitely
can find it.
post-COVID.
I do think too, like, I keep trying to think of like what like a compromise is, like, cause I get what you're saying, but also like if a student has, you're just using it as a sorting mechanism, like if a student has 10 absences, right, what's the magic number?
10%, so
10%.
10%.
18?
so it's
So-
10% of each quarter. So when you think of a quarter, it's 45 days. So you're approaching 4
4.
days. That's kind of
Yeah. So if you're looking at it as a building administrator, you see 5 absences. But we internally mark them as excused, even though RIDE says that's chronic absenteeism. We're saying in our heads,
For
oh
right,
no,
an
those are
absence
all
is an
excused.
absence, right? So if you're out
Yeah.
of school, it's counted as chronically absent. Doesn't matter how we're
Yeah, so if a student misses
Okay.
5 days in a quarter, no matter what the reason is, they are chronically absent.
Yeah.
So why aren't we intervening? But we are not dealing, like we, as in reality, not bad or good, like in reality, you would look at 5 absences and you'd be like, oh, those are excused, like it's fine.
that's not what we're saying.
That's what Rob kind of
No,
said though
what
with
we're
the
saying
sorting
is,
thing.
No, what we're saying is the intervention is going to be different,
Yeah.
right? Of looking at what those needs are. If you have a child with a health condition that can't come in, we're not gonna be sending them to truancy court.
Yep.
Right? We're gonna have a plan of what and how we're doing that.
Yep.
If you have a child that's just not coming to school because they don't wanna be here, and those are unexcused, our intervention there and how we're gonna do it will be very different, trying to get that child in school and working with the family and trying to motivate them and provide resources
Yep.
of getting them in. Both are gonna be considered chronically absent in the eyes
Yep.
of RIDE.
Yep.
One is out for a medical reason, different plan, and another one we're working with in a different way of trying to get them to be in school. So 2 situations, both children, based on the number of days, will be considered chronically absent, 2 very different approaches based on
Yep.
the student and family needs and the reason why the child's not coming to school.
What if we said like, illnesses or injuries exceeding X amount of days need to be documented by a medical professional?
Can I ask a question? So, for that kid who missed the 5 days in the quarter, even if they were excused, do they get a letter from RIDE saying they're chronically absent?
Not a letter from RIDE, but we have to send a letter
Right.
out.
'Cause I have a friend who was out 4 days for pneumonia, not in this district, who gets a letter anyway, even though they're all excused.
Yeah.
So they still get the letter.
We still have to
Because
send a
RIDE.
letter.
Cause it was 4 days and a quarter hasn't finished, it's over 10%, so they got the letter, not in this district, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think we send letters like that.
Yeah, we have
Where
to,
would, let us go.
yeah, we have,
Quarterly?
We do send letters.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
goes through Aspen, we have to do that.
Only for,
For anyone that's chronically absent,
regardless
anyone
of
that's being
how it's
considered
voted,
chronically absent.
regardless of,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's annoying too, like, I'm not gonna
Mhm.
lie,
Yeah,
getting
we have
that
to
and
do
knowing
that.
that your kid is excused and you still gotta deal with that letter, like, it's,
Yes.
cause then you gotta go back and you gotta be like, well, was it excused, was it not excused, and then you gotta call and be like, well, it was excused, it's just,
doesn't matter.
yeah, no, I know, but it's, like, what's the point of having an excused absence if it doesn't matter?
Exactly.
That's kind
That's what I'm
of the,
saying, but
yeah,
that's what
no,
I'm saying,
I know.
and we're taking money out of, we're having people pay copay, like, you know, like, that's where I can't, like, I wanna let it go, like, I want us to be like, oh, it's fine the way it is, but like, I don't think it is, and like, it also doesn't matter, and that is the part that is making my brain going twisty. But we can move on, like, we can,
the other thing we talked about the last time, but I don't see in here is the amount of time a person has to submit the documentation to have it be an excused absence. We had talked about that, we had established a time when we talked before, but I don't see that noted anywhere in here.
Yeah. Okay, so did we make a note of like what we were thinking in terms of that?
The notes that I have here said that excused absence documentation will not be accepted later than 3 school days after the absence unless approved by the building administrator, and then I think we started talking. And I'm not sure where we ended, but I also see another one that says excuses will not be accepted later than 2 days after the tardy, and so we were going back and forth. I think there was concern about leaving it, to the discretion of the building administrator.
Well, how do we feel about like the 3 days? Is that too short?
3 days was what we typed in, cause it had been 2, and we
3 days
extended
is
it to
good.
3.
I think 3 days is pretty good too. Are we okay with that?
I would defer to the building, like,
We're not, is it?
It's not in
Not in
this,
this one.
it had
There's
been
no-
in our other procedure.
Okay, where did we,
Would that be under excused absences?
It was under absence notification procedure
Absence notification.
and tardiness procedure, that's where that lived.
Okay, so we could add it to this bullet here. Under the second bullet, under absences, in section D, says all absences are recorded and reported as unexcused until notification of an approved reason for excused absence is provided to the designated office within each school. And we could say something where, we could say notification should be provided within 3 school days.
And same thing under tardy and early dismissal.
I say we just keep it at 3 for everything rather than make it.
keep it the same?
And then I see we reference that if the student is 18, they can make the notification of absence, but it doesn't say that they can actually do the absence themselves.
If the student is 18 years old or over, either the parent, guardian, or the student themselves can make the notification of absence and provide the necessary documentation for an excused absence, tardy, or early dismissal themselves. Okay. So, what would we want with that?
what do we need to change on that?
It should say, like, students who are 18 or older can be late, leave early, be absent on their own.
Students 18 or older. What section though, Jen?
It was.
It's right under, the one right under early dismissal.
Yeah, it's right above intervention, this is a little paragraph.
Basically
If a student is 18.
Yeah, basically what it's saying is that if you're 18 years old as a student, either you can provide the documentation or a parent or guardian can provide the documentation. But since you're legally an adult, you can do it without parent or guardian.
So couldn't it just say make the notification of absence slash tardy or early dismissal? And just put that in that sentence, and that would cover it.
Is there a category of student that's not included in there for ones that are older but might not have their own guardianship? Like, isn't there a category of students like that might be, like how we serve students up until 20 whatever,
Yep, 22.
yeah, but their parents might still have guardianship over them after 18.
Yes.
So
Well, they may, for some.
yeah. So the way we wrote it, it doesn't sound like that. Like it sounds like 18 or if your parents are guardians.
It says if a student is 18 years old or over.
Yeah.
Either
Either the parent, guardian, or the student
themselves can make the
Yep.
notification.
But in some cases, students over 18 cannot sign themselves up, depending on that piece, right? I know it's such a small population, but it is a population
I think-
that we serve.
But
You think
But
the
doesn't
or
that even
covers us?
include that? Because it says either the parent or guardian or the student
Mhm.
themselves, so,
I mean, it does allow for either one.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right, is that, or do you,
Yeah, I would agree with that, I think,
close enough, Laura?
yeah. I'm trying to think of it,
So you just want that, yeah, we just have to add the other things in, that's all
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
which can be the note of. Is there anything else, Jen, that?
No, thank you, Rob, for going through and
Oh,
doing all
no
that.
problem, thank you for the feedback.
So we're gonna change the social suspension. We're going to change the 18 years or older part. We're gonna add the language
just
that Laura's
put
gonna,
something in there?
what's
Yep.
that?
I
And
say,
you just add-
I just put it in there.
If students either of us can make that.
Just highlighted it. Right, and that's what we're saying.
For the sign in,
Who's-
sign out part, is people required to write why
Where are we now?
in that part that was about like signing students out?
I think we're missing under early dismissal that a student who's over 18 does not need the permission of a parent guardian. I know you and I disagree on that, Ken, but that's the law, and it doesn't say that there.
Say it again?
It says in the,
Under early
Early
dismissal,
dismissal.
it says students shall be dismissed from school early only with the permission of a parent guardian. If they're over 18, they don't need that.
Yeah. It's the first bullet under number 3 on page 5.
doesn't the caveat at the bottom kind of cover that though?
Yeah,
It
it does,
says
because you put
this-
at the bottom,
Yeah, but they're,
you
those
could
two
put,
they're
you
in
could
conflict.
put minor students, like you could just say minor.
Okay. Yeah, to me, that blurb at the bottom just says that 18-year-old students can provide the excuse. It doesn't say that they can sign themselves out.
Yeah, the only with permission of a parent or guardian.
so,
So minor
so
students.
what if that's, yeah,
It used to say, students shall be dismissed from school early only with the permission of a parent/guardian unless they are 18 years of age or older. That's what our existing policy says.
Laura, which one do you like better?
Either one works. It might, I don't know if it's easier for people if they see like 18, like when they're I don't know,
Yeah, I think the way Jen just read it makes, like, is more
the
clear.
way you had it.
Yeah, that's what was in there.
so can we just copy it from,
Yeah.
and put it there?
Aaron, what was the piece you brought up just now?
Oh, like if people are required to give like a reason, like if you're checking your kid out of school, like is it like, or like you have, like you sign like, you know, my student's name, my name, time, reason for dismissal.
Yeah, it asks for a reason.
Is that like a requirement that we want, that we mandate or not?
Doesn't say.
No, it's in
see
practice, not in policy.
there. Oh,
No, on the sheets are, I
Yeah.
think, I'm trying to remember, I've signed,
Yeah.
I think it does, and I put like,
Oh,
I put like, why you're
okay, so it's more, it's not policy language, it's more practice.
No, it's just on the forms, you do, you put, you know, student's name, your name, time,
Yeah.
and then
Reason
reason,
for it.
and then if they're returning or not returning, I think that's what's
I
on.
don't think it says returning or not returning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100%
Yeah,
on that.
I think I live down at the high school. I think it does say that, asking if they're returning or not returning.
I was just thinking, do we track that? Because, like, is that something that we,
Do we track reasons for dismissal?
yeah,
Not that I'm
I
aware of.
don't think we're taking that as a data point. Why?
Honestly, that whole form seems like privacy issue-y to me, because like I'm going in, right, and I'm filling out the form, I see who's signed out, I see who's been signed out by who, I see the reason, right, like that, like we're not posting student lists for privacy reasons, like why are we having attendance information out there for everybody to see?
My reason was different. Like I was thinking, like, do we want to note in the policy? Jen's not wrong. Jen's not wrong. But also that is what happens. I was thinking more of like a if that is if we're tracking it, right, the why, then we would want to put in that like when you're just like data points are who's taking them out, the reason, and the time. Like I was saying that, but also what Jen said.
Like, can we get an iPad, like they do at the orthodontist office? You just go, you plug it in.
Okay, it's not policy, but
I
yes.
know, but
okay.
I'll
Yeah,
try to,
yeah, no, I
but,
just see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because the form's out there, everyone can just
Yeah,
see
I hear ya.
who's leaving and.
Yeah.
and not just who's leaving, but who's signing them out, right? Like,
And where they're going.
and where they're going.
Mhm.
Yeah, seems fraught with.
So we don't need, so that policy-wise, we don't need to put it in, like, we don't need to put what information needs to be provided, cause that's actually not, like, it's not a tracking piece of it, so that doesn't matter. I just figured out what was bugging me about the family travel and vacation header, the and was lowercase. Now I don't, kinda, I like kept looking at it, I was like, why does that look so weird? I tried to like rewrite it,
Thank you.
it's, no, I'm not joking, like I literally was like, should we write it different? It was the word.
And we're gonna add the language about
We
the
did
statutory
twice.
language before, with the IEP before sending it to truancy court. Was there anything else?
I would make a motion to move it.
Forward with those
Yeah.
changes. I'll second that. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Rob.
No, no problem, thank you.
It took us
Thank you.
18 years, but we got it.
18, that's right, that's right.
It's very comprehensive. No, it's good.
Thank you.
That's a compliment from
Yeah.
you.
I know,
Very
thank you.
comprehensive.
I appreciate it, thank you. It's good. Yeah.
Hopefully it'll clear, like, and then, we're moving it forward, but the building admins can we send them the most up-to-date draft, just in case they
Mhm.
wanna send the school committee any feedback?
Absolutely.
Alright, thank you.
Okay, so Erin, you're up, transportation.
Yep. I'm in deep on this one, okay. Where is the most up-to-dated version? So, I'm just gonna bing you all on the one that is the most up-to-dated, cause I'm honestly not sure what folder it's in, Jen,
Okay.
but it's very good, I promise. Laura, do we have Laura's email? Can you add? I think you.
It's L Pickering. Pickering.
Yep.
At hcllawri.com. CL law, yeah.
Only one W or two W's? Like for law, like
Just-
HC,
HCL law.
Law.
So yeah,
Yeah.
just one W.
Yeah. and what was the last part?
RI.com.
Perfect. Okay. So since we last met, I went through and made this look more like a policy and added things in. So I'll let you get in and then I'll walk you through it.
Did you send it to us, or did you?
I just re-binged you on it. Ken, there you are. You in? I see you.
Oh, is it that one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just edited, there was two different ones, and so
Okay.
I just edited it on this one. I wasn't sure if people were gonna look at the other one.
Transportation
So I see
policy.
you, me,
This one?
Yeah.
Ken, and Rob, we're all in it.
Let's just make sure Laura.
Yep.
There you are, the anonymous grizzly. Okay, so so we have the purpose, which is similar to what I showed you all last time, although we could refine it. Like, I didn't honestly wordsmith the purpose and the philosophy too much. Then I went and put, reference documents. I don't know if this is how we wanna do it in life, but I thought it would be good to have those kind of up front and center for
Okay.
this one, and so we can move where they are, but I basically wrote the Rhode Island general laws that we're referencing in this one, and then also the regulations, and then the contracts, because this policy is governed by multiple entities in
Mhm.
multiple ways, and so I wanted to list those out kind of really clearly, but we can determine what's the best way to do that and where. But those are the ones thus far that I think affect this policy, but there actually might be more, and so we can figure out how we wanna do that. I then went through and started with the definitions, for vehicles. So you'll see a school bus definition, a mini school bus definition, a school van definition,
And then I also, although I don't love where this is, define statewide transportation, like as defined by RIDE. I couldn't figure out where else to fit it, for lack of a better word, but I don't like where it is, so if anyone has a suggestion, please let us know. On the right, you'll see some questions, that really honestly probably, when this goes to Michelle now, like, I just need her feedback on, like, I guessed that the buses are approximately 66 passengers, so on and so forth, based on what I could find online, but she'll know best on what those might be, and if she wants to change any of the definitions of these, I made them up via Google. Like, you know, I kind of tried to figure out what those would be. We're not wedded to those by any means. I then went through and defined staff, because we definitely wanted to really outline those pieces. I actually added the director of transportation. I realized that it might be good to define them in this policy, and then I did bus drivers, bus monitors, and bus assistants. And so again, like, we can change those as they see fit. But based on what I knew, and then I put in a piece under staffing about training and professional development. This is an area though that I need your all's opinion and of course Michelle's opinion on, as far as like which are gonna be mandated and like what topics should be covered. I took a stab, but there might be more or less that we wanna do there. Then moving down for eligibility, for transportation services, we'll need Michelle's feedback on the radical mile versus regular mile. Radial, whatever. We're getting rid of that, we've decided, I think, as practice. And so whatever we want the new distance to be, I guess would be, we need some guidance on. And then I broke it down to have it read for like accessibility accommodations. In the old policy, it was not updated language, but also it kind of made it sound like it was an exception, and so I tried to write it as it's what we do when students need accommodations in this area versus like you can get an exception for this policy if, like, I didn't like that language, so I tried to rewrite it and reframe it, although it's similar to what we had there. I also put in something that we've talked about a lot in practice, but I don't think was in the policies before, which is the safety accommodation. I think, you know, the department was doing this when it was coming up, but putting it in writing. So like if there was no sidewalk, even if the school was close, they were giving a bus. Or if they had to go on a busy road when they were walking, I think they were giving them a bus. And so just trying to put some language there. Do you want me to go through the whole thing, or do you want me to pause? Just keep going.
I'm just making some notes as
yeah,
we
no
go
worries.
through.
Then on page 3, started putting in some language about bus routes. We need to we had that discussion about when should the routes go to the families and different things. We didn't really, I don't think, land on the perfect timing for that, so I just made a note about kind of what do we want to do there. I also didn't know if we wanted to add any language about like how bus routes are created, or like, you know, as far as distance of time for a student to be on the bus. Like there's nothing, like other policies had some language about that, like what the ideal time would be for a student to be on the bus, or like do not exceed kind of vibes, and also like efficiency vibes, as far as the usage of buses, so with routes, so that's something we could consider. Then I updated the bus stop section, so I went through and kind of looked at that. You'll see my notes on the right, like do we want to note that this is like all of these things are only for the school year, or are we going to follow these same things during the summer? So like, for example, like are walkers just during the school year, but it might be different in the summer? Are the bus stops in the same spot? Would they, you know, like is that kind of,
So
how does that?
Summer is gonna, buses, stops, all that's gonna change.
Yeah.
But-
No, I know.
But we still follow the same rules of who's a walker and who's not a walker.
Okay, so it might be the same.
rules of eligibility will be the same, but the routes and the stops all change
Yeah.
for summertime.
Yeah, so we can figure out how we wanna write that for whatever, like I wanna make it very clear to people that you could get provided a bus during the school year, you'll get provided a bus you could get provided a bus in the summer, the bus stop might be not exactly the same, like, it just, I wanna make sure that's clear for families. Then I went down and did the same thing with the accessibility accommodations for bus stops. I also put in some things about safety accommodations. I did work in the registered sex offender language as well. I also, throughout the policy, tried to note like where concerns should go to help people understand kind of that chain, and so like concerns related to bus stop safety should be directed to Director of Transportation, like that sort of vibe.
But supervisor, I just changed.
Oh,
it
you
all.
changed it?
Yeah.
That's, alright, you
That's
changed it
just-
everywhere.
I did. I redid that.
Perfect. Never mind, I will not re-change it back then.
She's-
And then weather accommodations, that was from the old policy about if there is bad weather, the driver is permitted to use their own judgment for loading and unloading of students. When it comes to stops, like they can change the stops only in that situation, it sounded like. Then if you go on to school transportation, vehicle maintenance and replacement, a lot of this is new language, about maintenance. Wanted your all's opinion on how often, fleet management, about, how we assess our fleet and how we try to modernize it, and, also put in some things about environmental safety. Wasn't sure if I couldn't find if we had a idling rule. I knew I saw it
there's-
somewhere.
yeah,
It's
we already
somewhere.
have that, it's in the,
Yeah. I don't know if it's in policy though. I
no,
think
it
I
is,
saw it.
it's,
Okay.
It's in the energy
within
one
the
that we just
energy
did?
management
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah.
So we wanna either reference that or we want to.
I would just say we have a policy,
We
I
should
think we
reference
should say
it.
follow
Yeah.
follow
Yeah,
the.
so we'll make that note, Ken, maybe where it says 5 minutes,
Mhm.
and then we can reference that. I knew I had seen it recently.
Yeah, 'cause I
Um,
remember being surprised to see it there.
It makes sense though.
Yeah,
But also,
Yeah.
we should we don't want it in two spots. Then I went through and tried to add some language in about emergency preparedness. Kind of just talking about the safety drill piece, and then incident response plans, and some things about communication systems, weather alerts. Like those are things that like we kind of have to make decisions on. Like they didn't exist for us, and so how we want to write those, I need some feedback on that. Communication, about notifications, like if there's delays, accidents, or changes in routes, like kind of we need to work through how or what that might be, or if we just wanna leave it as will be notified. And then I put some things in about student, parent, and guardian feedback regarding safety for bus transportation, and then also, some of the language we talked about for transfers, like if somebody was changing their bus permanently. So I don't know if there's anything that we'd wanna look at for there. And then student expectations, and discipline, I wrote a paragraph, but then that paragraph will refer them to the discipline policy. We had talked about how we wanted to have all that discipline in one policy and not have it differentiated, and except adding like a specific maybe paragraph or two to that policy about buses. So we can decide like where to reference that. And then at the bottom, these were things that other policies had, or things that I thought of based on experiences that we had that we might wanna consider adding to our policy. Transportation availability beyond school days, for after-school activities, including off-campus practices, late bus and summer programs. Wasn't sure, wanted your all's opinion on what we might or might not wanna put in the policy regarding that. Transportation to non-assigned schools, in district, so if the district required you to be transported to a different school, like kind of what happened with the Hamilton Stony thing, if it's a student request, like in how it's their responsibility, they won't be transported via a bus. And then, wasn't sure if we wanted any program level language, like if they're going to, like a program like Bridges, where it's not their home school, like would that fall under that, maybe district required, but it's not district required, for lack of a better word. I also wasn't sure if we wanted to add anything regarding parent and guardian transportation, like when they're driving their own students to school, maybe something referencing like following the school's dictated traffic patterns, time for lineup, et cetera. I just saw the thing from the high school about how they were changing theirs, so that made me think that we might wanna put something in regarding that, about following those procedures outlined. Like not, they do their own, but like us, the policy saying, hey, people, we expect that you follow the guidelines as set forth by the school. And then the last thing I added for consideration was student transportation, if we wanted to put anything in regarding like
them driving themselves, parking on school grounds, and transporting other students. So, I do not like this policy. It is hard. No, like it took a long, like I tried to like update what we could, but then there's like other things that we just have some gaps in that I think we need to work through. So, it's farther along.
And
Oh, it's definitely.
Yeah, I just wonder the last few you put in about parent and guardian transportation. I mean, basically, what is it that we want to say there? Because I drive my child to school.
Yep.
What is it that you want me to know about how I'm driving my child to school?
Yeah, it wasn't more.
I want to be careful of how much we're putting in place where we're telling parents or guardians of what they need to be doing versus this transportation policy originated over how we're providing transportation to
Yep.
students. And I understand that there's other areas that we want to cover. I just want to be careful at how much we're directing at telling the
Yeah.
adults what they need to be doing.
I wasn't thinking of, I don't care what they do until they're at I was thinking about like the Hamilton bus lineup
Mhm.
for safety of students, right? Like
Mhm.
we want people to understand that like I feel like we should policy like our expectations when it comes to how cars on the school lot.
On school bus
are-
safety rules and.
Yeah, like they've gotta follow, like if we say, hey, always pull in, turning left, and then a family's consistently turning in right, that's like a safety issue for students, and that, in my mind, is under the umbrella of transportation to school. Like, I know that it evolves our policy, but I was trying to think of where else would that go. So I envisioned like 3 sentences that basically say, if a parent or guardian is choosing to transport their own student to our schools, like please abide by like the building specific guidelines for traffic patterns, lining up, not idling, done. Like very simple, but I do think it warrants being somewhere, because if they don't and they say, well, where'd that rule come from? Like there's no school committee level policy to like talk about, I guess.
Like, you can't tell me what to do, I'm gonna try it however I want.
Yeah, like I just wanted to give the
like,
school
yeah.
some support
Yeah.
from like a policy level. Not that, I mean, that's, but you know what I mean? So just simple is all I was thinking
Okay.
when I wrote that.
I think just a statement about people dropping off their children at school need to abide by, posted,
Traffic regulations
yeah, there you
by the
go,
school or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, posted traffic expectations or posted drop-off procedures,
Published
yeah,
traffic by
yeah.
each individual school. We
Yep.
do have a policy, can't talk about it 'cause it's not the, but for student automobile use and parking,
Oh,
so.
okay,
it-
maybe we should just
So
reference that then,
Yeah,
Let's see.
or pull it in,
yeah,
either way. I will make a note to look it up.
okay.
Do we wanna go to the top and just, if you wanna give questions or thoughts, or how much time is there? Or people can look at it and then just, we can, I know, you've got 30 minutes.
I'm trying to remember what way. Do we spell out, specifics around I think we need to, around the training, like where those records are kept?
Yeah, I think that, did I make that note about that?
Sorry, Jen, where are you right now?
Under
Yeah, I wrote
training
that.
professional,
I mean,
where is it?
I wrote, the note next to it said, what else would we wanna include in
okay,
this?
which ones
Which
do
one
we-
of these would be
okay.
mandated and where would these records be
Okay.
stored?
Perfect. And then
I don't have I mean, I think we had talked about human resources, but I wasn't sure, we didn't like land that plane,
Right,
that's why
I just
put
wanna
it as
make
a
sure
note,
that
yeah.
it's still like out there. The other thing, and I know I'm a broken record on
This
this.
feels like like if you passed Jen's test of like, did we, let's see how I did. No, I know I didn't pass.
It does say
does.
thorough inspection of the bus after each trip to confirm that it's empty and free of any belongings left behind. I would feel better if it said, and students also, just because like empty and free of any belongings.
I can write empty of students.
Just like,
Yeah.
just,
I went back and
really
forth
think
on
we
it. I thought it was
specifically
redundant,
need to
redundant,
name,
but-
like, make sure somebody, and whose responsibility are we
sentences-
putting it under, like the bus driver?
It's the bus drivers.
Okay. Yes,
I made it abundantly clear that it's the bus driver.
okay.
Like I read like a bunch of stuff. I
all but took the CCRI certification
Yep.
for bus drivers, like based on what documents were public. And it is definitely, like, I think we should define it as the bus driver,
Yes.
and that way
Yes.
it's real clarity that that's their
That's right, I would
responsibility
like
for
a
their
sentence
post-trip
that
one.
says that, like, it is the bus driver's responsibility to make
Yep.
sure there are no students left on the
It's
bus.
in the bus driver section.
I'm looking right at it.
See how it says like bus driver?
Yes.
Like that's their paragraph.
Yes, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it needs to be in there that says it's the bus driver's responsibility to make sure there are no students left on the bus, like spell it out.
So not, okay,
Like you can leave this empty empty and free of belongings left, blah, blah,
Says
blah,
here,
but I
conducting a
think,
thorough inspection of the bus after each trip to confirm it is empty of students and free of any belongings left behind.
okay, I hear what Jen's saying, she wants it really clear. This sentence is really long though. I'm gonna split it up, hold on. Like that, who wrote that sentence? Okay. Okay, how's that, Jen? Or 3 times. So I changed it to, I just split up the paragraph, so it says, additionally, it's the bus driver's responsibility to check the bus for safety issues and ensuring that it's in good working condition before each trip. It is also the bus driver's responsibility to conduct a thorough inspection of the bus after each trip to confirm that it is empty of students and free of belongings left behind. Bus drivers should address concerns.
yes, thank you.
The only thing that I wasn't sure about, and this was like mixed, was in a lot of the language that I saw from the Department of Transportation, whose website was surprisingly very nice, and that they talk about monitoring students' behavior during transit as a bus driver responsibility, which I thought was interesting because that's why bus monitors are there. But then I was thinking about the fact that bus monitors aren't required to be on 6 through 12 buses, so it is their responsibility. And so that's the only one that's in both descriptions.
Okay,
Like,
that makes sense.
it does, but then like, I don't know. That one was the only one that I was like, oh, I wish that was a little cleaner or clearer, but I also get that like there's not bus monitors in every bus, so.
One of the principals had brought up, what we were talking about, bus expectations, the use of technology by students on the school bus, and whether that was something, that could be like mandated. They expressed some concern that there have been instances where the bus people are like having like conversations around technology. And since phones are not allowed in school, and the bus is an extension of the school, like, how does that jive? So,
I mean, they're
I
held.
guess the bus is an extension of the school day. I guess how would that be monitored if students are using their phone, if they're listening to music
Right.
or whatever they may be doing? We just wanna make sure whatever we're putting in place can be monitored.
yeah, that's, and
So-
they just brought it up as an area of concern.
I think if they are using their phone on the bus because they might be listening to music or they're, let me use
Yeah,
this
we
music as an example, and then they take it and now they're taking pictures or a video of someone, that kinda goes to the next step of, inappropriate use of technology. And then, if that gets reported, then we'd follow the same consequences we would if it happened during the school day.
It's a good point. Like it's we should look at what we write in what's written in the other one, and then see if we wanna do an addendum. Like, you know how we were gonna add some language to that other one about bus, like if we wanna differentiate it, so like if it says, schools are not allowed, I don't know what exactly it says, but phones are not allowed in school, right? But then if, to Ken's point, if we want to make a slight adjustment to that for buses, and it says like, you know, school, you know, phones are permitted on the buses for XY use, you know, like anything beyond this is a violation of our discipline policy, like we could do something like that.
Yeah, I think that.
Or we could hold strong and be like, phones are not allowed on the buses because it's like, you know, depending on what the administration wants to do, but to Ken's point, you do have to like, if you put that in, then they have to monitor it.
I mean, I think like to say to kids you can't listen to music on the bus would be pretty severe, like, because I think that's a lie. Probably never gonna happen. Like, but I think maybe like you said, Ken, like if it's not
It gets to the point where they're being inappropriate with it,
right.
and that gets
Yeah.
reported.
Yeah, I think we
then
should be
gotta
just
follow
clear about that, but in the other one.
Yeah.
Like, so I made a note down here,
Okay.
and then, we can look at that. I don't know if the other one's on for consideration today.
It's not today, but
Yeah, so
we
we'll,
can.
yeah.
So
Will we have student conduct on buses? Is that the one we're referring to, or no?
no, it's the
Again.
actual student conduct one. We're gonna get
Yeah.
rid of student conduct on buses and roll it into.
The goal is to take the pieces in that one
Mhm.
that aren't anywhere else and move them over to the other one, because 90% of that student conduct on buses ones is identical with the the other one, yeah.
So Erin, do you think this
Yep.
is ready to go to Michelle as it is?
I think it's close enough.
Yeah.
Like, I think, Ken, with the caveat though, that like nothing is in stone, and that we as a policy committee have not, like, this isn't like the four of us saying, this is what
Right,
we,
it's just for her
is
to review
Michelle.
at this point.
But I do think it's far enough along that she could give us some helpful
Mhm.
feedback, or even if she wants to come to the next meeting, and talk through anything. Like, if she looks at it and is like, oh, this is great, then I wouldn't make her come after hours. But like, if she wants to talk through things or is concerned about things, like, nothing is locked. It's just like, I was trying to just get us farther and address some of the things that we wanted to get in, so. I think it's ready to go to her, most certainly. At some point, we probably wanna pull in the contractors, like, to see if they had any, like, you know, like, so it,
Right, and get her.
I think
share
we
with
should
them.
get her, yeah, like.
yeah.
Mhm.
So-
I also, though, don't wanna, like, I almost wonder if she does first look, brings us back feedback, we update it, and then it goes to them, cause I don't want them to be alarmed by something that will never get in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want, like, we haven't even, as a committee, gone through all this, so I don't wanna, like, I don't want people to be nervous about something that wouldn't come into reality, so I would recommend Michelle to take a first look, give us feedback, we make those updates at the next meeting, and then it can go back
Mhm.
to her, and then
She
can
can
get
send
shared
it
with
out,
the
yeah.
contractors and get some monitor and, you know, different employee feedback on it, as they'll be the one implementing it. And then there might be things that they have too that we didn't even think of that they'd like us to put in as well.
Okay, that works. For me.
And then depending on, so on the very bottom part, Jen, just quickly, do people want me to like draft out those things on the bottom? Like, are they worthy of even going to the next step, or people like, or should I not even bother, if that makes sense?
Like your.
Like for the availability beyond school day, non-assigned school part, guardian,
I think
transportation
they
and school
are, because I
transportation.
think there are areas that, you know, aren't currently covered and probably wouldn't
Yep.
be bad to,
so
even if it's just like bare bones.
Yep. I am glad though that I'm gonna check that other one that you mentioned, the student one. Alright, Ken or Rob, same vibe?
Yeah, I think it
Worth,
is.
Yeah, I
worth
think that's
typing them
good.
out? Alright, so I'll draft out that bottom part, and then when I'm done with that, I'll, email you, Ken, so you know to set, when to, like, to be able to forward it to Michelle.
Mhm. So I already was jumping ahead and asked her to look at it, so.
Oh, that's okay.
I'll let her know that you're still working on it. I was just
I'll
trying to
write a note to her,
put
I'll
some
be like,
notes here and,
Michelle,
like,
Ken moved
just-
it, no, it's okay.
Well,
Oh, no, it's great, I'll try to get
Yes,
to
I-
her too.
wanted to
No, it's great.
be able to kind of get her eyes and.
So just real quickly on the attendance boundaries and the assignment student to schools, I have 2 drafts, I'll send them to you, Ken and Rob, to review. I know we talked about consolidating it all into one, but it really can't be.
Which one?
The, like, 2 things, like assigning students to school, voluntary transfers, involuntary transfers, regular assignment, right? And then also like a process policy around redistricting, and how that, cause we talked the last time about wanting to give that committee a policy, so I have a draft of 2, I will send them out to everybody to review prior to the next meeting.
Okay. I am starting some work on that though, just because time-wise, like we.
Yeah,
need to
it's like
get moving, so-
95% done, so they're in there, like you can see them, I just was gonna give it one more last look through, but they're both in there, they're the
It's
ones-
under policies in progress.
Yeah, attendance boundaries, it's red line attendance boundaries and then assignment of schools red line, whatever the last version is of those 2 files.
20, yes, I'm gonna students.
So there's a lot of Monday holidays, so the next one would be the 11th, so technically we do not have one
You have
scheduled.
30 minutes of this meeting left, right?
Huh?
You have 30 minutes of this meeting left.
We only went to 6 o'clock.
Why does my
No, we
calendar
only
say
go to
6:30?
6.
What?
Start at 4:30, right?
Yeah, it starts at
4:30
4:30.
to 6.
That's so weird, mine says 6:30, just kidding. Never mind, wrap it up, goodbye.
So.
I mean, I'm not sad about that, I just literally had it on my calendar till 6:30, maybe it was what I was assuming.
So the next one would be the 11th, but it's a holiday, so then the next one after that is the 25th. I really prefer not to go a whole month on these, but I know, Ken, how you feel about scheduling on the off weeks. Do you have availability the 12th, the 13th, or the 14th?
Yeah, so I'm just pulling up my calendar.
13th is a wellness meeting.
So when was, so our next meeting was supposed to be when? It was
The
on the
11th,
11th?
but it's a holiday.
It's a holiday.
So then, you wanna find another day that week?
That's
Or-
cause you wanna keep on the
Like trying not to go up the week.
right,
Yes.
try not to go off the pitch, right?
So,
Like we're up to the wellness is the 13th at 4:30.
I could do the 12th.
honestly, I can do the 12th too.
Okay.
I was just looking at other things that are happening, but the 12th, there's nothing else going on that would interfere with us having a.
So if we do the 12th at 4:30, Erin,
Policy
can you make
meeting.
that?
If my flight home is on time, yeah.
Okay.
Like there's a couple hour buffer there, so
Okay.
it's
Alright, so I'm gonna put that in right now for the 12th at 4:30.
While we're talking about this, we have a conflict with December 9th. I know it's out a little bit. Can we move that week to a different day?
Jen might have a conflict too.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I'm
You
sorry.
might be talking to
That's
somebody
alright.
other than me, I don't know,
Well,
so,
who's,
um,
I'm just trying to.
we can certainly move it now if you know you're
Yeah.
not gonna be available.
We just wanna move it to that
Does the
Tuesday for
Tuesday
that
work?
week. I mean, I can do it, if Rob can't, I can definitely, do it.
Okay.
I don't have anything on.
What's I don't know Andrew's schedule last night.
He's every other Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Warwick.
Oh yeah, I don't even know. I can write. I'll write these dates down. I can let him know tomorrow.
Okay,
and
that
he
would be
can-
great, thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes we can like if his attendance is not mandatory, although appreciated.
Okay. All right. So November 12th or December 10th and
Both,
December 10th.
both, and
Okay.
December, instead of the
Yeah.
Monday.
Okay.
Alright, so you'll move that.
Yep, so I've got it on the 11th and on the 10th.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll get with Jules to reserve the rooms. Okay, so I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.